Right.
Igor Trigub and Olga Bolotina are going to give us information on the chapter bylaw amendments.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Igor, I'll start and then you please chime in. Igor Trigub did a tremendous work on bylaw amendments, which is always fascinating and exciting work. So before you this year are three chapter amendments, and we hope that you support them. The chapter executive committee voted on those and proposed those to you. So I'll briefly describe them. So 3 consecutive year term limits for ExCom chair and vice chair, with a minimum of 1 year break for either role. So there is a sense among recent chairs that we want to pass leadership opportunities to other members on the executive committee and let other people get to know the club and also serve in those capacities. So that's been the legacy for previous chairs, Arthur Feinstein, Becky Evans, who is here, Igor Trigub, and I also strongly support this particular amendment as a current chapter chair. I think that's a good practice to have, and people can always take a break, which I'm telling you, after chairing a chapter for a couple of years, you might need a break. So 1 year is a great time to take away from that particular role. And then you can run again. The previous chair to assume immediate past chair role. So that was actually contemplated a couple of years ago, and this bylaw was voted this year by the ExCom for a main reason that I'll give you an example that will hopefully demonstrate why this bylaw is important. So I'm a current chair. I do luckily have another year to serve on the executive committee. So technically I could, share my expertise and share my experience as a chair and pass all the hopefully wisdom and do's and don'ts of that particular role to the next chair. But if I didn't have that additional year, I could probably disappear off the face of the earth, and all the knowledge that would be probably lost. Of course, we have previous chairs who served in that position, but obviously in the years, especially like 2020 and 2021, a lot of things changed. So it helps to have that continuation of leadership. And that particular role of immediate past chair does not give anybody any additional powers other than the opportunity to pass on the baton in a sustainable and effective way. And then executive committee chair restricted from serving on the nominating and or elections committee. That was also contemplated for quite some time. I think that the overwhelming sense is that chair has influence and power within the group or the chapter, and it sort of puts them in an unfair potentially advantage. So the chapter decided that chair should not be serving on a nominating committee. So those 3 amendments that we are proposing for the chapter, and I should mention that we as a chapter looking at the bylaws holistically and looking how to improve our work through improving our bylaws, clarifying and streamlining. So happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much. And I think Igor is better positioned to cover the Northern Alameda County group bylaw changes when we're ready for that. So yeah, I'm at your service. So I don't know if anybody has questions or.
Thank you, Olga. I'm wondering if we don't have Northern Alameda County people here right now. They were in the group yesterday. Igor, do you want to say something quickly about, and I think it might be helpful for you to say a little bit about the difference between chapter bylaws and group bylaws, actually, as we're going to post this for people to just be learning about all of this sort of Sierra Club infrastructure. So maybe you could say a little bit about that and just a quick note on this NAC one also, could you do that right now? And then we'll take questions and comments.
Happy to.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Igor Tregub. I had the privilege of serving as the Chapter Executive Committee Bylaws Task Force Chair this past year. The Sierra Club nationally has a set of model bylaws that every chapter and group across the country must abide by. The chapter executive committee, as well as certain group executive committees this past year, engaged in an overhaul of certain portions of their bylaws. It turned out that there are elements of the bylaws that do not need to go to a membership ballot because they are consistent with the national bylaws already. However, these 3 chapter bylaws and the NAC bylaw, which mirrors Chapter Bylaw Amendment 3. So just as the Chapter Bylaw Amendment 3 says the Executive Committee Chair is restricted from serving on the Nominating and/or Elections Committee, that is the same exact bylaw that a unanimous Northern Alameda County Group Executive Committee also decided to put on the ballot. And to be honest with you, for the longest time, we thought that this was already the requirement. There was a little bit of confusion around the national bylaws. There is a different section of the bylaws which deals with the functioning of the Nominating and/or Elections Committee. So we thought that the chair is already precluded from participating on this committee. And as NAC chair these last 2 years, I have not participated on this committee. Turns out that it is not in the national bylaws. Therefore, this is a change that needs to be voted on by the membership. I would urge a yes vote on all the chapter bylaw amendments and this one Northern Alameda County Group bylaw amendment as well. The purpose of the Nominating and/or Elections Committee is to bring people in and to run a fair elections and nominations process. And by keeping this out of the role of chair, whoever that might be, simply ensures that the role of that very important committee is depoliticized and that everyone wishing to run has the opportunity to do so in a fair manner, because the decisions of the Nominating and/or Elections Committee is final. If there are any questions, I will give you my number via camera, 510-295-8798. You can also contact me by email at itregub@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Hey,
We have
Gacy,
time
if
now.
I may jump in with a one clarifying point that you actually asked me to address, and I would be remiss not to. So the chapter bylaws do not apply to the group. The chapter bylaw amendments do not apply to group bylaw amendments. So each group within the chapter has their own bylaws, and that's why we have to vote separately on the chapter bylaws, which apply only to the chapter executive committee, and obviously the entire chapter in certain areas. And the group bylaws apply to that particular group that is voting. So Northern Alameda County bylaw amendments will go in effect in Northern Alameda County group.
Thank you so much, both of you. And I think the only thing I would want to add is perhaps, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, for people who might be watching this and not familiar, there are model bylaws for chapters and groups from national. One of the things they tell us, as I understand it, is that we can add bylaws and rules to our chapter or to our groups as long as they don't conflict. So that's one of the things to look at. And the only, right, that's right.
That's absolutely correct.
And so we have to pay attention to that. we can't do something that is in contrary to national. And the other thing is that there will probably continue to be bylaws work next year. And because we're not done, we want to make sure that all of our bylaws are a good framework for us to work together well as a chapter and as groups. And so we'll continue to look at them. I think they're kind of fascinating if you're that kind of wonky person. So
Right. We're never done. We're
never done.
The
So
work
at
is
this-
never done.
Okay. And I think at this point we can turn off the recording, but we can have our points. At this point, it's open for conversation among everybody who's here. Questions, comments, anything you want to share. This is meet, greet, chat. So anybody who wants to put your hand up or, let us know you want to say something.
I did. There was one question that came up yesterday regarding the immediate past chair role. And just sort of like a curiosity, like right now, if you are, so Olga is the current chair, and when she stops being chair, she will by definition become the immediate past chair, right? Is there anything that this bylaw, should this bylaw pass, is there anything, I mean, is it sort of a ceremonial title? Is it meant to be sort of just like recognition and encouragement to keep institutional knowledge inside the club? Because the way the bylaw is written, it says there are no special powers or no, like it doesn't, for example, give you a vote. If you are no longer on XCOM, you would not, I assume, have a vote in the executive committee if you happen to be the immediate past chair. Does that make sense?
No, and I'll answer this question, and then Igor and I see Becky has a hand on up. No, so it doesn't give any powers, but yes, it basically, if I would end my role on the executive committee this year, then next year I could stay as a sort of honorary member of the committee to provide some guidance, which I personally found extremely helpful when, yes, we do have, people who are obviously very knowledgeable and can share information, but that immediacy of, passing, sort of holding your hand that Igor did with me when I assumed that position was extremely helpful. I mean, not to mention 2020, but regardless, it was just helpful to be able to go to somebody and ask questions pertaining to, hey, what happened a month ago with staff, or because, chairs are a lot of times purview to some information that not necessarily shared widely, and even even though we share most of the things with the executive committee, but there are some things that chairs involved in staff related or whatever that is, that are not necessarily shared widely. So Igor, Becky.
I can go after Becky.
I support what Olga said. I would say that I don't think in the discussions we had about this change that we did envision what might happen if the immediate past chair is no longer on the executive committee. But on the current XCOM, something which may change, there are several former chairs. Now, granted, the club changes a bit every year, but Arthur Feinstein is a former chair. I'm a former chair. John Rizzo is a former chair. Igor is a former chair. So we do have a reservoir of knowledge there. Sometimes what's required is if you don't know the answer, you know who to ask.
Yeah, thank you so much, Becky, and Norman LaForce too.
I forgot Norman. Sorry.
May LaForce be with you. Star Wars reference. Okay, I'm done. So yeah, when I was envisioning this bylaw amendment, we looked at a number of organizations that already have this in practice. A number of organizations have an immediate past chair or a chair emeritus role or president emeritus or emerita role, specifically so that that institutional knowledge can be passed down. And the incoming chair doesn't have to scramble to hit the ground running at the same time that they may not have all the knowledge. Now, it was written specifically with the point of, yes, this role is only in existence if the immediate past chair is still on the executive committee and they don't have any special powers beyond the power of one vote, same as everyone else on the chapter executive committee. With that said, it does formalize that institutional memory and brain trust that, to Becky's point, collectively exists, but it gives the opportunity for there to, should the chair need some additional resources from their immediate predecessor, to be able to get them in a formalized manner.
Thank you. Anybody else have, I don't see any other hands up. Anybody else have comments on either this particular amendment or the other ones, or anything else that's been said by our candidates, or anything you want to expound upon, as long as it's reasonably relevant to what we're doing? Anybody else? Feel free to chime in. This is our forum.
Martha's hand is up.
It is. It's up. Sorry. I just wanted to say that we really talked about this at SAC, and for everybody who came to that working group, and Tiffany and some of the other people who couldn't attend, the term limits piece was unanimous, and not by itself, but I mean, it was by itself, but it also came with a conversation about training and mentorship. And I just want to put it out there, when you're empowering people with the resources to do the leadership piece and to mentor each other and to help with different issues, you become much more relaxed, I think, about the term limits piece. I just want to say that. And all of us, even people who really don't get along very much, I have to say 100% supported each other about this and said term limits were something that they wanted. And so I'm really pleased that you guys put this on the ballot. So personally excited.
Thank you, Martha. And I saw a hand at Becky. Becky's hand still up.
I want to point out that the term limits thing only applies to the chapter executive committee, not to the groups. Our bylaws already required this. I don't know that we've discussed about the vice chair role, but there was a discussion at the Council of Club Leaders a couple of years ago, and term limits was discussed for the groups, but the groups fought it very, very strongly, because some of the groups are much smaller. They have fewer resources of volunteers and activists. And so the board and the council did not require term limits for Sierra Club groups. Just a bit of history.
Thank you, Becky. And I see Martha's hand up. Oh, Martha's going down.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that, yeah, to Becky's point, the national bylaws require you to have 3 people on your group chair or your chapter. The minimum is 3. So we were actually going to put that language in. If you drop below 3, then term limits can be waived if there's nobody else who wants to do that. And the other piece, and I did see that Becky has term limits, which is super awesome, but I'm kind of hoping this applies to committee chairs as well. Does this apply to committee chairs? Because we were really hoping that committee chairs could also be term limited.
I remember that conversation coming up, but what finally came through, I see whose hand was up first? Igor? Olga? Olga hasn't spoken in a little bit, then Igor, then Becky. Okay. You're muted, Olga. Olga.
I'm speaking Russian. I'm speaking, I guess. So it's always a balancing act, obviously, and I think it's always sort of, you know, how to create the conditions for people to actually, and motivation for people to go and recruit actively other members to run for leadership positions, because not only we need to include people, but also it's a great opportunity to keep people involved, to keep people educated on environmental issues, and really disperse the leadership. And also the reality of the fact that those positions are hard. You're involved in a lot of very difficult issues, long meetings, as many of us know. So how to accomplish both, to bring people in and into organization where they know that they have progression sort of to leadership, but also how to maintain those smaller groups and how to maintain the groups. I think one of the things is then, and nominations committee is actually doing it, which I'm very happy, providing some templates, samples, simplifying, making it more streamlined for people to enter. And something that we're doing in the chapter also is creating templates, creating manuals, creating some onboarding materials that are easy for people to understand the club and to become leaders within the club. So my spiel, my little spiel.
Thank you, Olga. And then Igor, then Becky.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify again for those who are not steeped in all this bylawlessness of the Sierra Club. Bylawlessness rhymes with lawlessness. Okay, I'm done. So the chapter, again, the national bylaws, the national model bylaws are something that the chapters and groups have to abide by, but they can introduce different aspects of it, which then would go on the membership ballot, as long as they're not in conflict with the national model bylaws. What is currently in the national model bylaws, and the only thing that is in the national model bylaws regarding term limits, is a requirement for chapter ExComs to decide whether they want to do 6 consecutive years before you step down for at least a year, or 4 consecutive years, or 2 consecutive terms, or 3 consecutive terms. That is the only thing that the chapters are required to follow. The chapter ExCom appoints all committee chairs and all, these are issue committees of the chapter. They appoint all issue committee chairs and all issue committee members. So it would have to take a bylaw amendment that would need to go on the ballot to require term limits for issue committee chairs. Groups are not required to have term limits. They have a choice of putting on the ballot term limits for the group executive committee if they wish to do so. And my understanding is that's the conversation that the SAC, the Southern Alameda County Group, has been having. The other nuance here, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, we de facto, the chapter executive committee has already been practicing officer term limits. I don't think any of my immediate predecessors, Becky Evans and Arthur Feinstein before her, has served for longer than 3 consecutive years, but we felt that it was important to formalize that practice, which is why this is on the membership ballot.
Thank you, Igor. Becky, and then I want to ask a question about this committee issue, because I think I gave people wrong information last night. But go ahead, Becky.
I agree with everything that Igor and Olga have said about committees. We do have a situation with several of the chapter committees where the chairs have been in place for a very long time. And I think what is difficult sometimes is to find someone, is to set up a set of succession. I don't know how else to put it. And it's something which I think is difficult depending on what the issues are in terms of what the committee is covering. And it's a task we haven't looked at, but it is something we need to think about. I mean, we have one of our chairs has been chair of a committee for 35 years. There's another one who's been chair. There are a couple others that have been chairs for, 7, 8, 10 years. So we have to look at the committees, and we have to look and see if there's someone in place in the pipeline who could fill those roles and do them as we would want them done.
I see you, Olga, and I just want to say, I think I gave wrong information last night. So hope, good thing this video will go up. People can learn, because I thought, probably from conversations that we had in the task force, that we were looking at committee chairs also. And I guess it was that we were looking at that and that it wasn't decided upon. And so I guess we'd say that is one of those things that we could consider next year as we move forward with all of our good development of the chapter, so anyway, sorry to anybody who I said the wrong thing to. I was confused. That's why Olga and Igor are here. Thank you. Olga.
Thank you. Well, ultimately, I think that creating a pipeline is a good organizational management. And, we are working on strategic plan right now. And one of the things that I think is important to put in place is to put systems in place of how to think about creating the ladder, how to attract people and train them, because Becky is absolutely right. Some of those committees, you cannot just step in and become a chair. You really do have to have a knowledge about that particular area, because Sierra Club, one of the things that we sort of so good at, we are providing very detailed information on some issues and provide feedback on environmental reports, et cetera. So, but I think that putting strategically those tools and those requirements for all the leaders to think strategically how to create a succession plan for them, I think is crucially important. And I think we really are thinking and been having conversations about those issues on all levels of the club and the chapters. And I hope that those conversations not only going to continue, but we're actually going to put those systems in place for everybody to follow and perfect. I mean, perfect example, I'm just going to give a shout out to nominations committee. Thank you so much. I think, Peggy, you've been doing a great job, bringing in people and involving them at the level that I hope everybody feels, that they're learning something and they're contributing. And also another club that, I happen to have the committee, finance committee, we actively looking for members to make sure that we constantly have people who can step into those leadership positions when needed. So anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. It's a big question, isn't it? Succession planning is a huge issue for organizations and companies and everything. Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely needed, though, because we're just
need
not
it.
going to be able to exist, as Igor said, as existential threat, or Scott, I don't remember, forgive me who said that, but it's existential sort of threat and opportunity at the same time to bring people in. So
we have to renew ourselves.
exactly.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I think it's about time for us to say farewell. Do we need those last slides? I think everybody that's here knows how to vote. Tiffany made us nice slides on how to vote. And then also the information on the, maybe just the last one, Tiffany, about the ballot counting party. So everybody can see that. We plan to, the election is finished on November 30th, 11:59 p.m. All votes must be received, whether electronic or paper. And we will then be counting. We've set the date of December 4th, but we're still having to figure out location and time. We've asked people, everybody we talked to, and we'll put it in the chapter media some more. Let us know by November 15th if you'd like to participate in that, so we can kind of plan whatever we're doing for logistics. And then our intent is to report out the election results to the executive committee on their first meeting of the year, which is that first Monday in January. So we were telling candidates that we would talk to the XCOM chair, Olga, and before she leaves, and say, okay, so how do we then communicate the results to candidates and then to the whole membership. So we'll figure all of that out, but this is just interesting. And then from us, thank you all for voting. We are aiming for 25% voter turnout, which is 12 times plus the voter turnout we had last year. So help us get there, okay?
Hey, before you go, Peggy, can we like seriously, this has been like a really long process and I would just love to, I don't know, sing to you or cheer to you. And Tiffany and Pam and Scott. And I mean, you guys have been amazing.
Thank you, Martha. We appreciate you and all the others too. Yes.
Yeah, we all
And
love
yes, you can sing to us sometime. Yeah.
We will do that. We will do that.
So much. Becky, I think, had her hand raised.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope that the Nominations and Elections Committee can notify the candidates and the current executive committee as soon as is reasonable, because all of us need to be thinking about 2022, where we want the chapter to go. And I think people need to think about what their role might be if they get elected or don't get elected, whatever. I think that's really critical. It's also courteous to let people know as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, everybody have a, right, go ahead, Scott, close it out.
Yeah, I was just going to clear this
Clear it,
section.
yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay. Mhm.
Hang on.